Good evening and welcome to another edition of Swinging from the Hip, episode number 24. And today on the show, we look at the T20 Women's Series between England and West Indies, Australia, New Zealand, see how the IPL is going and who's on the top of the table, game of the week and individuals standing out, and the summer schedule for international cricket in New Zealand. We also have a bit of a sad moment as we look back at the career of Dean Jones. But before we go too much further, let's welcome Taz has joined us. How are you doing, Taz?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, as we said before we started, pretty knackered, pretty knackered, and then rushing in this afternoon trying to get the stuff ready for the show. So it'll be interesting to see if I've got enough stuff ready, but we'll find out.
No,
Now, you've been having a sale for Taz cricket gear. Tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, I'm in Northern Hemisphere. Obviously, the season was interrupted, so we got all the stuff sent over here, and we just put it on clearance. So we've got some amazing deals, like colored pads, for example, top of the range colored pads for $85 only, and down from $220, and then our top of the range bats are less than half the price. So it ends on Sunday. So if anyone keen to buy some cricket gear,
3 days left, guys. 3 days left. Go in there and get some cricket gear at amazing prices. At amazing prices. No, that's great. That's great. Anyway, we'll kick on with the show, and we're going into this week in history. And this week in history, 26th of September 1943, the world welcomes Chappelli. Ian Chappell is born in Adelaide. He went on to captain Australia, but I think most of us will know him from his work behind the microphone for Channel 9's Wide World of Sports cricket coverage. 1995, and Sri Lanka beat Pakistan in Pakistan to record their first series win overseas. 2017.
I was there for that game.
You're in the crowd.
That game, but that series. I watched that series in Pakistan on the park. One of them, yeah.
That's an interesting times, isn't it? When those new countries coming onto the test scene are beating you, and you're sort of thinking, why does it have to be us? Why can't they beat somebody else for the first time?
I think Sri Lanka, that's where they picked up the momentum. So I remember they comfortably beat Pakistan in I think in both test and one day series, if I'm not wrong. And
right.
And then they went to the World Series in Australia and did well there. So it's kind of I think they picked up momentum, and Jayasuriya was started to doing the pinch hitter role. So I remember that series, and there was a lot of bad press. I think Ramiz Raja was captain, and I think he lost his captaincy after that series, if I'm not wrong.
So, hey, it's Pakistan. If you lose a series and you don't have a new captain, there's something wrong, isn't there?
Yeah.
In 2017, Ben Stokes gets in trouble with the constabulary and ultimately gets suspended by the ECB, which the big thing there was that he missed the Ashes series as well. Later on, he was actually cleared of anything that he did wrong. 27th of September, the only man to score 300 from New Zealand is born. 1981, Brendan Baz McCullum arrives into the world. 28th of September, 1996, Kenya learned all about international cricket in the first official one-day international in Kenya. Sri Lanka comfortably beat Kenya with almost 20 overs to spare. Murali got 4 for 18, and Ramesh Kalawitharana scored 89 off 100. In 1984, saw the first day-night match outside of Australia. It was played in New Delhi, and Kepler Wessels actually played some shots and went on to score his only ODI century. That was Australia winning that game easily by 48 runs. Now, we've got to remember with Kepler Wessels, started with Australia, and then obviously with the reintroduction of South Africa, ended up playing for South Africa. So it's quite astounding that it's the only century that he actually scored in ODI matches. 29th of September, 1983, and the insomniacs all over the world celebrated as India's Ashwin Gaikwad scored the then slowest double century in tests. It lasted 652 minutes or 426 balls. And here's a surprise for everybody. The test petered out into a draw. 1995, Salim Alahi led Pakistan to a 9-wicket victory over Sri Lanka in the first ODI played in, I'm going to get this right, Gujranwala. And now, not yet 19, Elahi scored an unbeaten 102 on his debut, ODI debut. And he hadn't even played a first-class match yet.
And you know what? He hit a 6 from 96 to 102, and then I think that's when the game finished. So he was 102 not out. And the Pakistan lost the next 2 games. It's an interesting series. Seklan Mushtaq made his international debut in the same series as well. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's few plays.
Yeah, I was thinking 1995 when you said that. I was like, yeah, I suppose that'd be about it'd be right. He's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm sort of also thinking that he was. I mean, like he was the 4th person to score an ODI century on debut. There's probably a good chance he was the youngest as well.
Yeah, I don't know if someone has done it since then. Like, there are heaps of young guys coming through. But Elahi's got 2 older brothers. They both are Test players as well. So that kind of helps when your 2 older brothers are playing for Pakistan.
That helps. Bit of guidance on the field.
Yeah.
Bit of support. I think I don't think he would have been older, but I think Lou Vincent scored on against West Indies at Eden Park on debut.
Against Australia, if I'm not wrong.
Or was it? Okay, it was against Australia.
Guptill scored against West Indies.
Right.
And I think that's in Test match. Vincent scored a 100 on debut, I think, if I'm not wrong.
Right. So moving on to the 30th of September, Murali's favourite umpire was born. 1952, Daryl Hare. Hare also went on to controversy with Pakistan with ball tampering, but also called Grant Flower from Zimbabwe for throwing as well. He was also at the other end for a couple of other highlights in Test cricket. That was Brian Lara scoring 385 and Courtney Walsh when he got his 500th wicket. So he's been involved in quite a few moments in cricket. 1986 saw the birth of the man that holds the top 3 positions for runs scored in ODI matches for New Zealand. And we mentioned him not too long ago. Guppy. Martin Guptill was the man in 1986. And 1994 saw Mark Taylor bag an unfortunate milestone. Whilst in Pakistan, he became the first captain on debut to bag a pair, which would be, when you're trying to set an example as the captain and you're the opening batsman, not a great way to start. No. But in saying that, he returned to Pakistan 4 years later and scored his 334. Now, the interesting thing about his 334 was that he had plenty of time to overtake Brian Lara's 375 or 385. Always get that wrong. But he declared to give Australia the opportunity to win the game. So
yeah,
that was
it was in Peshawar, I think. Yeah.
Yep, that's right. It was.
Yeah, it's 1998. Yeah. It's funny, like the groundsmen got a lot of bad press based on that because they said it was a flat deck. Everyone sort of blamed the groundsman. So next series was against Zimbabwe, and he sort of made a sort of seaming track, and
spicy one.
Took 10 wickets, and Pakistan still lost to Zimbabwe. So, so that's 1998 for you.
You can't win. Who wants to be a groundsman? 1st of October in 1997, needing just 2 runs to win in Bulawayo. Speaking of Zimbabwe, Chris Harris drove the ball past the bowler. Now, as the exuberant crowd rushed onto the field, so he's hit the drive, he's going for 2 to get the win, and the crowd's running onto the field. Now, while the crowd's running onto the field, John Rennie from Zimbabwe is running after the ball. And lucky for John Rennie, he beats them to the ball and fires the return and ran out Gavin Larson. And so it was the 13th tied ODI match at that stage. I don't know if there's been any other since. But, it was the 13th tied test match. Had the crowd reached the ball first, and it was a close run thing, it would have been 4 and New Zealand would have won the game. So that's you just picture it. It's sort of classic 1980 stuff when Benson and Hedges used to be played World Series in Australia, and you had the crowd running onto the field when the crowd was allowed to. This is like seeing them all running around. It's like, oh, it's the last ball. Get off the field. So, and that was our today in history. So there we go. Moving on to the present and see what's happened this week. And the IPL's had some thrilling games this week, and we will talk about all things IPL shortly. Also, talking of shortly, we'll also go over Australia and how they've dominated New Zealand in the T20 series. New Zealand did pick up a consolation victory in the final game, but the same can't be said for England, West Indies, where England have been absolutely dominant in the T20 series against West Indies. Also, another one we'll cover shortly. New Zealand cricket have finally been able to finalise and release the tour schedule for the upcoming summer. It's actually quite a jam-packed schedule that they've got. And I think one of the interesting things, and we'll talk about this a bit more later, is the T20 series against Australia, where they play 5 T20s against Australia, while Australia is also in South Africa. So we'll go over that a little bit later. And the man who changed the way the ODI game was played, Dean Jones, as I mentioned before, passes away. And we'll have a look at some of the stats for Dean Jones towards the end of the show. Cricket South Africa have cancelled their internal T20 competition, the Mzansi Super League. They will replace it with a new franchise competition towards the end of the year. Now, they want to have some sort of competition because they plan to have, as I said, plan it for the players to be able to build to the T20 World Cup. Without any T20 competition, they're going to go in pretty green for that World Cup. Bangladesh 2-test tour of Sri Lanka has been postponed yet again. Both sides are struggling to come to an agreement on quarantine protocols for visitors. The tour has not been cancelled, and Bangladesh have asked Sri Lanka to reschedule the dates. The tour was supposed to start on the 23rd of October. And speaking of schedules, the BCCI president Sourav Ganguly wants to do everything he can to host England in India. Now, that's between January and March next year, or sometime between January and March next year. The problem they've got is that the state of COVID in India is rather fluid. I think they're currently behind America in the stats for the gold medal of the worst COVID country in the world. So, yeah, it's a big ask for India to get everything right. In saying that, Ganguly is looking at creating bubbles around the test venues in India. Then they're looking at 5 test venues, very similar to what England have done this the English summer, and it seems to have worked quite well. So they'll look at that. The alternative option, if should it all fall through, is to play the matches in the UAE, just as the IPL matches are being played currently. So that's our news this week, and we'll now head into some of those matches and series that we've just alluded to, and talk about how they've been going. So bringing up. I haven't shared my screen yet, so I have to share my screen. One moment, please, callers. This is how organized I have been today. Not. And share. There we go. We don't want Dean Jones yet. Dean, get off the page. Not your turn yet. There we go. So I don't know if you can read that, but this is just basically a summary of what's happened with the T20s so far, with the England woman against the West Indies woman. And what you're not going to see here is reality is that England has dominated the series. I think I'm going to jump to the last game in the series, which was actually a rain-affected match where they only played 5 overs each. And again, really, West Indies just haven't got a power game outside of Dotton and Stefania Taylor, and the rest of the players really struggle to sort of come up with any runs. So you usually find when those top 4 batsmen are gone for West Indies, there's not a lot to follow, and therefore it's pretty comfortable wins when you look at those results. The first T20 is 47 runs, second one's 47 runs, third one's sort of getting close, 20 runs, yeah. Getting close. But then back to 44 runs, and then the final one, as I say, affected by rain, and they win it. Interesting thing, West Indies, not Pakistan, West Indies, they scored their runs, and they only lost 3 wickets. And England actually lost truckload of wickets, players only getting 9 runs. I don't think there was a double-digit score, actually. I'll bring up the scoreboard for that one. I'll click on the link. And by the power of the interweb, if I can get the scorecard, we'll see here. So here's West Indies scorecard. As you can see, 3 wickets. Taylor and Dotton at the top, scoring the majority of those runs, and McLean actually coming in with 14 at the end there. But let's have a look at the English scorecard. Nobody in double digits, but it didn't matter
They
because
won the
obviously
game.
there's well, they got trust in their batting lineup, haven't they? They know that they can bat deep, and as people can come out. Interesting enough, 2 runouts though towards the end there. So they actually had 3 balls to spare in a 5-over contest, which is, as a percentage, quite a large percentage, isn't it? So
Yes, it's like they lost a wicket every 4 balls. Just looking at that.
yeah, that's action-packed cricket happening at its best. So basically, I think for West Indies, they really need to look at developing the team beyond their star players in terms of Dotton and Taylor. Really, England, we know, one of the top teams in women's cricket in general, whether it's red ball, white ball cricket, they're up there. So I suppose West Indies really, I suppose, a little bit disappointing when you go back, not the previous World Cup, but the World Cup before it was held in the West Indies. You sort of think it's a great opportunity to grow the game, and they really haven't been able to achieve that by the looks of it.
Yeah, I think it's there were a lot of issues with their management as well. Like I think at the West Indies, the Caribbean cricket boards and all that stuff. If you remember, like
Right.
they had issues with their seniors as well. So
Yep.
I assume that kind of filters down and to the juniors, under 19s, and the women's teams
Yeah.
as well. So which is a shame,
So
but
plenty,
hopefully.
plenty for them to look into anyway. So, and then obviously moving on from there, we had the New Zealand woman playing the Australian woman, and now all the games being played at Allan Border Oval up in Brisbane. Again, New Zealand, I mean, yeah, they've gone on to win that 3rd ODI, but when we look at, if we go just have a look at these scorecards, I'll bring them up. I think they're starting off okay. They're getting wickets at the top, but really, unfortunately, the pressure's getting, from what we can tell, the pressure's coming on, and the New Zealand bowlers are sort of falling away, and they're relying on the likes of Amelia Kerr to come in to shore things up. But if there's no pressure down the other end, it's easier for the Australian batswoman to basically see off Amelia Kerr, isn't it? It's just like you need pressure at both ends, or at least to be a little bit tidy.
Yeah, I mean, like if you look at the scorecard and you can see that they almost scored 60 runs in last 6 overs with last 5 wickets in hand. So obviously they do bat deep, and the power game is there.
Yeah.
60 of like last 5 wickets scoring 60.
Yep.
That's like 10 and over. It's a pretty good effort. They
Yeah,
probably
look,
see off Amelia Kerr, and then maybe towards the end just have a bash.
That's it. That's it. You see off the I want to say strike weapon, I suppose you'd say. You see her off, and then basically you target what's left.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And then you go to the the New Zealand innings, and I suppose what you're looking at there is you look at that top 4. The strike rates are below 100, so they're not even scoring at run a ball, are they? And you're setting your team up for really. You're setting your team up for struggle, if not fail.
Sophie Devine and Susie Bates both have the power game as well. So
Yep.
it's kind of like, and Sophie has been doing well in BBL as well. That's in Australia. So I guess like it's more like when players like her, kind of batters like her, try to buy time, they know that they can do it at the back end, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I guess like that, New Zealand were 1 down for, I don't know, 60 odd or whatever, but that's where sort of like those two, obviously one of them had to go on and score big, and unfortunately both of them didn't. And they, as you said, they've between both of them, they've played half the overs. So
yes,
that pretty much sort of, I mean, not just half the overs, but 12 overs, So that's probably 12 overs, and they've scored 62 runs, and they needed 7 and over. So I guess like 2 main players. So one of them had to go on to hit sort of big to win us the game, but unfortunately not this time.
So you sort of think, and I'm hoping that they're having this. I'm guessing they're having this discussion on the field, and it's just like, well, hang on, one of us has to go, and one of us has to sort of be a bit of an anchor, even though it's a T20. You got to come up with some strategies around that, because you got to have somebody going, don't you? You can't have I'm struggling with the thing that one of them, or they're both looking at their power games, going, "We're going to go big at the end of the innings." But I don't know. I think if you both end up going and you haven't had your chance to go big, you're setting up your team to really battle at that. And
Yeah, I think like your nucleus of the team is pretty much top four. Maddie Green is relatively new, like in terms of she's
yes,
been up and down the order. But Susie Bates and Sophie Devine and Amy, I mean, Sophie Devine has been batting lower down the order as well. But all
yes,
your nucleus is right at the top,
yep,
and sort of like Lauren Down batting quite low. She's an opening
yep.
batsman. So I don't know. I mean, maybe one of the seniors have to bat a little bit lower, one of the either Sophie or Bates, one of them bat a
Just
bit
to
lower.
mix that up a bit and to
Yeah,
spread
just to
that
mix that up.
experience around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because I mean, if those two are in the middle, so I guess you would expect that us to win, but then when they obviously both of them got out, it kind of didn't help.
Mm-hmm. And then we look at the second test. The second T20, and I suppose you'd say a slightly better performance. Unfortunately, so Devine, who is obviously the star of the team, going early. Run-outs early are always, hard ones to take. But a slightly better performance. But again, still struggling with the acceleration at the back end of the innings, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, you don't know what's a good score. I mean, I haven't obviously wasn't live. I haven't watched it live, so I don't know what the pitch was like. But looks like the batters were taking time before they sort of push on. It's like there's some tracks you cannot go go from ball one, and you just need to buy some time before you do that. So I don't know if that's the case because there's no 6 hit by New Zealand team. So I assume
Good point. I hadn't picked that up.
Yeah. So
sort of,
and then would be full size boundary.
Well, then we go to Australia and we see Alyssa Healy striking at nearly 200 at the top of the innings. When your opening batter comes in there and does that, then you basically you set up well, aren't you?
Yeah, it's funny.
Pressure goes off
because both the opening bowlers went for under 7.
Right.
And she opened the batting, so I don't know. She probably they bowled 1 over spells, and then they went after Sophie Devine and Susie Bates.
Susie Bates went for 22 and 1 over.
1 over, so I guess that's the difference,
Actually, that could be the whole 33. There is that 1 over. So, unfortunately, I didn't see much of the games either, so I can't really comment on that regard. But yeah, that's it. And then just going to the final game, and I'll get there. There we go. And New Zealand pull one out. Consolation win. But in saying that, a good consolation win. Restricting Australia to 123, which was a good effort, really. And I think it was off the back of Amelia Kerr. And we'll just see down there, she bowled 4 overs for 18, picking up 2 wickets as well. So this time, the pressure was being... I did see some highlights and read some reports on it. This time New Zealand was able to build some pressure, which then Amelia Kerr was able to then leverage to sort of put more pressure onto the Australian batsmen where they couldn't just see her off. They had to keep scoring the runs, and it meant that she picked up some good key wickets as well.
Yeah, and they might be playing on the same pitch, and by the third game it probably got slower, And
it is the same.
Probably tried to do the same what she did in the previous game. I don't know, because she's obviously played a lot slower in this game. But I mean, slow bowlers probably did better.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I mean, I remember when IPL first started, and it was just like, oh, you don't want to play spinners because they're going to get smashed. But when we look at IPL these days, spin bowlers are a sort of key part of your attacking arsenal. Yeah. It's just like everybody's going almost like wanting to make sure they've got really good spinners in there because they play a big part in IPL games. In T20 games.
It's funny you say that because 1975 first one-day World Cup, in England, and that's where I was reading. I read a lot about it, and it was like even then they thought spinners have no sort of Spinners
No
don't bring
place in the
enough
game.
to the
Yep.
plate in that game. But I mean, you can see that the one days are dominated by spinners as well. So
Yes, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we let's go on that tangent. ODIs. I mean, you just look at those, looking for the spin bowlers to come in and tie the innings up in the middle of the innings. We're just basically going for 4 or 5 and over because
yeah,
the run rates are so high in one days these days.
yeah,
4 or 5 and over in an ODI is actually really economical as well.
yeah.
I mean, Dan Vittori's a key one there back in the day. So that was the series. Australia wrapping that up with two games to one. They now move on to the ODI series, which will be starting in a couple of days. 3rd of October is the first ODI. Obviously, as Kiwis, we're hoping that that last game helps New Zealand with a bit of momentum into the ODI format, and particularly looking for Sophie Devine, who was effectively the player of the BBL, WBBL last year. Hopefully, she comes right and with the longer format, gets a chance to get her eye in and score some runs for the White Ferns. Cool. All right. Well, so now we're going to move on to the IPL and just have a look at what's been happening there. I actually think it's been quite dynamic, the IPL this year. I mean, like, the games have been quite close. I mean, there's been drama happening through. I mean, 2 games this week, and we'll come to them in a minute. But you know, the games that are happening, they're close, they're tight. There's scores that you don't expect to get run over, being run over, so to speak. Scores that are low, and you're expecting a team to easily get there, and they didn't get there, sort of thing. So, lots of sort of it's very dynamic, and it's not predictable.
Yeah, I mean, like, because they're playing on Sharjah and like 3 different grounds, and the thing is, Sharjah is the smaller of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say big scores, and
Yep.
if you go through where they're playing at Sharjah, you know, and then when you say like 160 is a par score in Abu Dhabi or Dubai, whereas at Sharjah teams are scoring 200s, you know.
Yep.
So it's kind of like it's good in a way that like they're only playing on 3 grounds, and by the end of the IPL, people will probably figure out that how to go. I mean, like with PSL, and like, you know, I said, they started off with 140, 150 games, even in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, but
Yep.
back end of the season, like they end up scoring 180 or close to 200. Those 2 grounds, probably 200 is a very, very good score, and you won't see many 200s. But somewhere like Sharjah, you will see 200s quite often, and I think that's probably is happening.
Well, we'll move to the table first, and then we're gonna. I thought we'll go to the table, and then we'll have a look at where's the table. I've lost the table. I didn't get the table up. Oh, I'm shocking. Hang on. This is another fail. That's the type of day it's been. One moment, please, callers.
I think they can.
But I had it ready. Dear,
I think the Capitals are leading the table.
Right. I'm just gonna. Oh, come on. Where's it good? I did the search before and it came up with the page straight away, and now it's not coming up with a page. Great. Here we go. Let's go to the table. Points table. There we go. I'll blow it up a bit so we can see it. And now I'll bring it on screen. With 2 of us. There we go. It's been a long day, people. It's been a long day. So there we go. You're right. The Delhi Capitals are there at the top of the table. So interestingly enough, that I thought more games had been played.
I think 13 games altogether. Or 14,
in terms of each, though, as well.
Yeah.
Was it? Well, okay. It's sort of like, it looks like all teams are on 3 games so far.
Yes.
This is the IPL's official website, so I'm expecting that to be correct. So basically, looking at it, it's still pretty tight. Nobody's really showing up too much, really, is there? Still early days.
Like, you know, with 3 rounds, everyone has won a game.
Yep.
And in past, I know, like, I don't know, a couple of teams didn't win the games until halfway through the season. So this is pretty good. And as you said, like, it will because it's not played in India, because, you know, that's where you have the home and away sort of thing. So I think that sort of strategy wise, it will be different. and it's good
Yep.
that everyone got a win under their belt within 3 rounds. So hopefully, sort of it next round, like halfway through, it will be the table will be similar, and then because I mean, like if a couple of teams take the lead halfway through, then it's difficult to sort of keep people interested.
Well, that's the interesting thing. So I think it was last week's show we actually talked about the Mumbai Indians and how they've actually won a title when they were basically hadn't won a game for the beginning of the beginning rounds. They'd won one or two games and they were bottom of the table or towards the bottom of the table, and they were able to come out and as I say home. I think in that discussion we discussed where they ended up with a lot more home games towards the back end of the competition,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they ended up finishing towards the top end of the table, made it to the finals, and won the whole thing. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting dynamic this time round where there are no home games. So it's an away game for everybody and it's a home game for everybody all at the same time.
Yeah, and you probably won't see many rain-affected games either. So
Yeah,
you get like in the subcontinent, if it rains, you kind of like it just rains. It's heavy
yep,
enough that you just
yep.
the game is called off. I don't know how many games in past, but I would doubt if there is any game rained off in this IPL.
No, that will be yes, an interesting one if it is. I mean, like it obviously does rain
It does
in the
rain there, yeah.
UAE. But what sort of rain do they get? Is it like a shower for an hour, or can it actually rain the
I
whole
mean,
day?
because Pakistan has been playing there for last like good 7-8 years, or maybe more. There has been rain interruptions, but not. I can't recall that like maybe one or two games have been called off.
Yeah.
Like in last 10 years, from my memory, there would be more. I might have missed it, but definitely rain is not the issue in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Sharjah. So
Right. Well, yeah. So we've got, I said, Delhi Capitals at the top. Nobody's going to be too concerned at being at the bottom. As I said, everybody's had a win. It's a logjam at the top. There's only 2 points in it. So again, very early days in terms of the competition. And so we'll move on to and I think I've got this right now. So the most runs, and KL Rahul with a fantastic 132 the other day is sitting at the top of the table and looking pretty good. But some pretty big good scores happening. Obviously, as you say, if they're playing in Sharjah, the Sharjah you said mentioned, I think it was in the postage
yeah,
stamp there, you're going to get the big scores happening there. So a miss hit can go for six quite easily.
yeah. What I liked about this table here is like out of top six, four are like Indian players.
Locals, yeah. Well,
And
locals.
sort of and obviously that's why probably India has been doing so well with the bet, whereas
Yep.
like in PSL, generally they had overseas players sort of taking the bulk of it.
Yep.
And India's got, like in IPL, most of the teams got good top order Indian batsmen and finishers as well.
Yeah.
Whereas in comparison to PSL, like Pakistan didn't have that many finishers who are Pakistanis, so they had to overseas players were generally like finishers. So I think this is a good sign for Indian cricket as well. And
And also,
Rohit Sharma sitting at 11. I doubt he will stay there. By the end of
yeah,
IPL, he'll probably be up there.
I was just going to allude to that. Is the fact is that when you look at the Indian names at the top of the order, they are names that we know, but
Yeah.
they're not the big stars of the international Indian team, right? Is it? I mean, the guys that are there or thereabouts and putting pressure on and the like. They have been involved in the games. I mean, obviously KL Rahul is in the team, but yeah, it's great for their development and they're bringing players through. It's working really well for
And
them,
the
making them
strike rates,
even stronger.
strike rates are amazing. 156, 170, and Sanju Samson like 200.
200.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a good sign, and amount of sixes been hit. I think most of them are hit at Sharjah.
It's a shame. I don't know whether we can actually get that. I'll see if I can bring that up a bit later, but by ground. But yeah, and when you look at Saju Samson, and it's like as you say, a strike rate of 200. But it's not like he's played one game and he had one innings. It's like over 3 innings and he's maintaining a strike rate of 200. So that's a pretty good effort.
He had 16 sixes in 3 games. That's a lot. More than
Has
5
he
a
had
game.
all his games at Sharjah?
Yeah. So he probably played 2 games at Sharjah.
Now, I mean, and you look at down the order, Ishan Kishan, who had a fantastic innings the other night. And you sort of think, oh, he's on the table. He's only played one game.
Yeah.
Missed out on his 100 by a meter or so.
Again, like 9 sixes in that one inning. So that's amazing.
Yeah. He's been using. He's always dropping there. He's using a Taz bat, even if he's not. So like I said, the internationals, obviously. I mean, AB de Villiers. I mean, how can this guy retire from international cricket? He's got to, it's disappointing. I mean, it's sort of disappointing because I love watching him play. I think he's such an exciting player to watch. So it'd be great for him to make himself available for South Africa at the T20 World Cup, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like from cricket's profile, like point of view, like people would watch him if he's playing. Like more people will watch cricket if he's playing.
Yeah.
And I think like last World Cup, close to it, he made the 50-over World Cup. He made himself available, but was too late. So I'm not too sure what's happening with South African cricket, because while he was captain, he struggled with the or whatever their quota system is, or the management and stuff.
Yeah.
And then Faf du Plessis took over, and then so I don't know what's going on, but I hope he plays, because that just makes the World Cup a lot, like, obviously a bigger event, someone like him playing there. So
well, you just want the best of the best people, at a World Cup, don't you?
That's true, yeah.
That's what you want to see. And it's like even in retirement, he's still, he's not, I mean, he's in retirement, but he's more than, he shouldn't be in retirement.
Yeah, I mean, from international cricket, he's still playing the leagues around. He played in PSL, he's playing here, so.
As you say, I think it's more an issue of having struggles with governance within South African cricket, unfortunately. Right, so we'll move on to the most wickets. So we'll just easy click there, and we'll bring that up. And now here's an interesting one, really. I mean, obviously early days, but Rabada at the top of the list. I suppose at the moment we don't really talk about bowlers. That's why maybe that's a surprise. We've just been with the scores that have been happening. We've been talking about batsmen.
Yeah, I think if you remember, like last week when we were discussing, last time we were discussing IPL, and I did bring it up that, like, even at PSL, because I don't know how many games of PSL played at Sharjah, but they definitely played at Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And the fast bowlers, for some reason, actually kind of won you the games. And if you look at here in top 6, so I think apart from Chahal, like, rest of them are fast bowlers,
Fast bowlers.
So from my memory, like, and even in PSL, the fast bowlers were who actually won you the games and dominated. So I guess, like, start of the season, but it's good to see, obviously, a few fast bowlers up there.
Hey, when we're not supposed to say that. We were just talking about how spinners are integral parts of all forms of cricket now.
Oh, that's probably back end of the season when back end of the season when the pitch gets slower. So.
A bit tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's always great to see the Sergeant at Arms, Sheldon Cottrell, there picking up wickets. So that means we can see him doing his salute. Interesting enough, with the impact that someone like Rashid Khan's been making globally, as you say, it also highlights again the fact that the fast bowlers are obviously having the impact really in terms of bowling side of things early days, and possibly the spinners will have to come into it, but later. So we've just looked at the most wickets. We'll just bring up the economy rates, because at the end of the day, if we can get your economy rate going, then you're going to hold the batting team down, totals down. And when we look at Akshar Patel, there we go. There's top 3, all spinners.
Top 4.
Actually, top 4. Sorry, yeah. I keep making the same mistake. I keep missing out the highlighted one at the top.
Yeah.
There's the top 4 are all spinners. And we look at those economy rates. 3 matches, they haven't bowled their full quota of overs. Now that's really interesting to me, because their economy rate's so low, but they haven't bowled their full quota of overs.
Yeah, it's weird.
What do you think's going on there?
I have no idea. Probably the game finished early, or I don't know.
The only one that out of the spinners is actually Rashid Khan. He's bowled his
Got
12
4.
overs out of the 3 matches, and you can see why at 5.83 runs and over.
But if you look at the strike rate, so like Washington Sundar like strike rate of 42. So I guess uh, this is probably how they're using him as more of a container. And then
Container.
for
Yep.
strike, they probably are using like fast bowler to
Yep.
get you wickets. Maybe
Well,
that's
you've
the
got
only reason they didn't finish the quota.
well, that's the interesting thing. You're right there because I mean you got Rabada, who's also with Delhi Capitals, and you look at Akshar Patel, both at Delhi Capitals. If you've got Rabada picking up all those wickets, or you just come in there and do your containing role to put more pressure on at the back end of the innings.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it.
So we've got there. So there we go. Washington Sundar is the most economical bowler currently in the IPL. And I'm just going to roll down. And I was like, no, unfortunately, I was hoping that they might actually have the stats per field sort of thing. But no, they don't seem to have that. So the next slide or screen that we look at, website that we look at, may be able to just bring that back down. So these are the games that have sort of happened this week. Let's start off with what game was the highlight for you this week?
The tie. I think it was who was that? Deccan. I
Bangalore.
think it's the Delhi Capital versus Kings 11. 158 something. They tied on 158.
No, the tie game this week. That was last week. The tie game this week was between Royal Challengers Bangalore and the Mumbai Indians.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the tied game.
In 2 weeks.
It's interesting that one because I think the Challengers nearly stuffed it up twice, basically. Because I felt in regulation 20 overs that they should have actually controlled that game better. They did have Mumbai Indians under pressure, but then they seemed to release that pressure. And I'm just having a look. It was in Dubai.
Oh, that's good.
That's not the small stadium, I'm guessing. That's not Sharjah, right?
No, Dubai is a different one. So generally, like Sharjah would be probably your highest scoring. I mean, unless they have brought the boundaries in. But like in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, big scores came usually towards back end of the season, where I don't know if the pitches got better or I'm just talking about PSL. So 180, 200 were hit at the back end of the season. And start of the season, it was 140, 150, 160. So 200 there is pretty good. Good effort.
That's a pretty good score. And you sort of, you'd be scratching your head, wouldn't you, when you sort of think, geez, we've scored all these runs and they get chased down. That's a big ask to get 10 runs and over, isn't it?
Yeah, cricket these days. So.
It's cricket these days. The other match, which was a high-scoring affair, was the Rajasthan Royals and the Kings 11 Punjab. I was going to say Rajasthan Royals won by 4 wickets, so they were batting second to win that game.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know. I was sort of thought massive effort to sort of to chase 223 runs. Again, that was in Sharjah, so that's on the postage stamp. But again, it's still pressure, isn't it? I mean, we can talk about how small the ground is, but you're still doing well to be able to chase down a total that's over 200.
Yeah, I guess like you have to start well, and then like I guess like nowadays most of the cricketers at that level can hit the ball from like can actually go after it from ball one, especially somewhere like Sharjah where the ground is small, the pitch is better.
Yep.
So it was Agarwal scored 106 to 50 balls.
Yeah. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Well, you look at Nicholas Puran coming in at the towards the end of the innings and 25 off 8, so it's strike rate of 312 just to finish the innings off, as if things weren't bad enough already. I'll just casually go at a strike rate of 312. So yeah, sort of like in sort of 223. It's interesting. I mean, like, would you as a team? So your total's just been chased down. You 226 they've scored. They chased down your total of 223. Do you look at it and go, hey, we only lost 2 wickets. Should we have been reassessing and going harder?
Yeah, it's a tough one because like most of the games when you go on the pitch, like when you start the game, you have a sort of a target in mind, and
Hmm.
you after 5 overs you revise it, and then because Agarwal was going so well, KL Rahul didn't have to push,
Yep.
and that's where you can see that 120 strike rate and 27 strike rate on a normal day is a good strike rate, for like a top order batsman, but like Sharjah 200 is a par score, so I guess probably they underestimated it. But I mean, they
Mm.
finished off well, so I think it's more a certain time where sort of I think in the middle overs probably they kind of slowed down and then pushed it towards the end.
Yep.
But I mean, still 223, you would take it any day.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the interesting thing. It's only a hindsight thing that you can do on that, isn't it? And it's like you're going to sit down now and you go, okay, when we're playing at Sharjah, you can't have a slow end and a fast end. Both ends have to be going.
Especially the amount of firepower they had. So I mean, like Sarfaraz Khan, he can hit a ball. Jimmy Nisham can hit a
Nisham.
ball. So they had
Yep.
actually they had the depth.
Yep.
I mean, Maxwell only faced 9 balls. So and Nicholas Puran faced 8 balls.
8 balls.
So I guess yeah, you're right. They probably could have gone harder, but again, if you're scoring 223, you would be happy with it.
Oh, yes, absolutely. As you say, it's a hindsight thing, and all you can do is like, okay, we know for next time. It's part of your information gathering for the next game and what you have to achieve. And then we sort of look at, I mean, like we look at the Royals. It's not like they got off to a great start. I mean, they lost Josh Butler early, who they would have been sort of thinking we need Josh Butler to be there to score some runs because we've got to chase 223.
Yeah. So
And
I
then
mean, like
basically,
obviously
yep,
Samson and Smith, their partnership probably took it away, and I guess again they had the depth and they used their depth. um, Whereas yeah, I guess
well,
they with Smith there for that long, that probably helped. Sort of Smith faced 27 balls, so that probably helped Sanju Samson as well. And
yep,
then towards the end, they kind of so I mean it's a good chase. It's like with Steve Smith there, you probably expect that that he kind of
manage it.
yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is with Rahul Tuati, and I didn't watch the middle of the innings, and I caught up with the end, and it's just like, it's interesting because I heard it, well, sort of the commentary, um, and it was like he'd started to go basically, he'd started to hit the ball because in the middle of his innings, they were sort of the commentators were going, it was like, well, he needs to do more than what he's doing. He's not doing enough. And at the end of the day, it was actually his innings that sort of managed it perfectly. And then with a bit of cameo from Jofra Archer, who interestingly enough came ahead of Tom Curran in the batting lineup. But Jofra
Yeah,
Archer,
did he not hit 4 sixes in the previous game as well?
yeah, he did.
I think
He
yeah,
did. What's
yeah. So
going
it's
on
kind of
there?
like he's seeing it better, and then why not? I mean, if he's seeing it better, then put him up the
You,
order.
you, you do it. Something. Yeah, he's liking the water in Sharjah, obviously,
Yeah.
or in the UAE anyway. So that was the I would say that was the match of the round effectively for this week I should say. And I suppose we'll just wait to see how the scores are developing this week will be a good sign of what we're going to expect going forward. As I said, one of those games was in Sharjah. The other one was actually in Dubai with the
Dubai, yeah.
scores over
Abu
200.
Dhabi is relatively low scoring ground as well, and
Yep.
we'll see how sort of it shapes up. But it's interesting because one day you'll be playing at Sharjah, and next day you're playing at Abu Dhabi. So kind
Yep.
of your targets in your mind kind of keep on changing.
I was just going to say, how do you like? I mean, you've got the 3 grounds. You start to get an idea of how each game ground is playing. How do you mentally prepare or approach the fact that we're going from a 200 ground to maybe a 150 ground? And what are you thinking? Or do you sort of ride that momentum and say, hey, look, yeah, it's a 150 ground, but we're just going to carry on playing our game and see where it takes us?
Yeah, I guess I'm sure each team has a couple of analysts, a batting coach, I mean, all that sort of stuff. So I guess like when they sort of they plan for the game, they obviously have some sort of targets in mind. But from my memory, like, you know, obviously after 5 hours, they probably can reevaluate it. Like, you know, maybe like because back end of the season, Abu Dhabi will probably get a better, will be a lot. From my memory, the ball was coming better at the back end of the season than start of the season. So Abu Dhabi probably is a slow pitch now and probably picks up towards the end. Whereas Dubai is the similar. I don't know if Sharjah is small ground, but it would probably start if the back end of the IPL, it will turn more. So small ground, yes, yeah. But I mean, if it is turning, then you've got your sort of spinners back in action.
And it will. I mean, you might not get sharp turn, but there will be some turn at some stage in this tournament, won't there? As the pitches dry out and get worn.
Look, I mean, Pakistan in the Test cricket won heaps of series there. I think for 3 years they didn't lose a series or something, just based on their spinners. You know, it's just like because it's a T20 game. Obviously, the pitches are used for a certain small amount of time, but with the weather there and everything, back end of the season things would be different.
Yep, it has to be.
It should turn. It should turn at Sharjah at least.
Yep.
Back end of the season, it actually should turn a lot more than what we expect in T20s.
And as Aaron says, it was good to see Kane actually get on the field finally and actually have an impact and score some runs there too. So
yeah, and quick runs as well.
quick runs, yeah. Look, I this is really bad of me, and I have put my hand up. It's just like I don't. I mean, when I say Kane Williamson T20, don't equate for me, but you know he actually does very well. And a number of times he's actually had strike rates that are close to 200. Because of the way that he manipulates the ball around the field, he might not be hitting the sixes and the like, but to get a strike rate of 200, you can knock twos around all the time,
Yeah,
couldn't you?
With
You don't have to hit boundaries.
With Kane, the thing is he plays less dot balls.
Yeah.
And that's the key in T20s. Like if you play less dot balls, you're always going to have a strike rate around 140. And then if you can hit a few boundaries in between, because like there are a lot of twos on offer. And then in between you can, you know, but as long as you don't play too many dot balls, and I think with Kane, how he plays, he will just, you know, drop and run and take a single, or like, you know, he won't play that many dot balls. And I think that probably reflects his strike rate in T20s as well.
Yeah. And you have to say that, you know, Kane Williamson's a lot safer for the crowd than, say, Joff Archer.
Yeah.
Well, it has to start with, it's like they need to fill the whole stadium with cardboard cutouts so that as the Sixers go and they see them knocking them down like guess who. Well, that's the IPL, and we'll have a look at next Thursday how it's progressed along. We'll look at again what we feel like what the match of the week has been for us, and see who's at the top of the batting table, the wicket keeping table, and who's maintaining their economy when they're bowling as well. So we'll look at that next week when we do another review of the IPL. Now, moving along, and we've got, as I said, announced the NZC has finally been able to announce the schedule. They've been through many iterations as they've tried to work out in our COVID environment when they can play, who they can play, etc. Then they had to go through the process of getting the government to approve the schedule, when the teams can come in, how that's going to be managed, etc. Obviously, we'll have our version of biosecure bubbles for the teams to come in and prepare themselves. So that's finally been announced, and we'll bring that up now. And there we go there. So we start off, that's probably going to be a bit small, so I'll just try and blow that up a little bit, as much as I can. Whoops, too much. There we go. Hopefully that's legible. And we start on the 27th of November. Actually not that far away, to be honest, against the West Indies at Eden Park. So got to say, looking forward to that, aren't we? To have some cricket in New Zealand.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, hopefully by then we are in level 1 and we can go and watch it. You know?
Yeah, I think we're all going to be going a bit feral if we haven't got to level 1 by then, wouldn't we?
Yeah. So, but good to have, like, especially West Indies having so many dynamic players in for T20s. it would be good to have them here, and it would be interesting series as well. Because with
Absolutely.
them, like they're hot or cold, So
yeah,
hopefully,
absolutely.
we get.
Well, it's funny to being a selfish sort of Black Caps fan. I'm sort of like hoping the weather's sort of got a southerly blast coming in or something like that, because they don't really like the cold when they want, and it's hard to bowl and bat when you got 3 jerseys on.
Yeah, very cool.
Now, the interesting thing early looking at that schedule is so that after Eden Park is Bay Oval on the Sunday. So there's no game on a Saturday. Always confusing when they don't have a game on a Saturday. But anyway, no game on a Saturday. Go to the Sunday, and then there's a game on a Monday. So Monday night. Now we've got to remember there's no holiday. They're going to be asking people to come out on a Monday night after 2 games, one after the other, in Bay Oval. That's an interesting call.
Well, are you sure there might be some local holiday there? I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know, Taranga Day or something. I don't know.
I'll go onto this screen and saying Tauranga holidays.
I'm just making it up, but I'm just saying.
I'm just checking. No,
it doesn't
just
make
checking.
sense.
Doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't make sense at all. It was like you would have been better off actually. I mean, it sort of makes what I've just said a bit crazy, but you would have been better off playing the Eden Park game on the Thursday and then having games on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
It would have been similar type scenario, and but I suppose part of that Friday night could also be, I don't know because I don't know exactly when the teams arrive back in the country, but that could be part of the quarantining process as well, of when the IPL finishes and when they get into New Zealand and the 2 weeks quarantine's over. Maybe that's part of it, so that they couldn't start it. Yeah, but otherwise, that's crazy scheduling to my mind. So we have the 3 T20s against West Indies, and we go on to Test matches in Seddon Park and Basin Reserve, and we love our Test cricket, don't we? So look forward to that even more than T20, don't we? And the last few years, I mean, there hasn't. I mean, I think in the last couple of years there hasn't always been a result at Seddon Park, but it's still it's great watching cricket at that ground. I think it is actually a good cricket ground. I mean, I like the Basin.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a proper cricket ground.
Hey, don't take pot shots at my Eden Park, okay?
No, but that's like a purposely made built cricket ground. So
yeah, with embankments for people to sit on the embankment, sort of, and it just adds to the whole atmosphere of it.
Yeah, it's good that they're not like sending, because I know like in past they've been sending like Pakistan or India first game in like Dunedin, like University Oval, they're just wearing 3 or 4 jumpers, and they never recover from it when they come up. So
that's the plan. That's the idea. So basically, we'll face the West Indies in 2 tests. The second one in Basin Reserve in Wellington, which the Wellington City Council told the whole world about a week ago. So after the West Indies men, we get Pakistan coming along, and they've got to kick off with T20s, 3 T20s again, starting off with Eden Park. A little bit more logical again this time. So the Friday night, Sunday night at Seddon Park, and then a Tuesday night at McLean Park, leading into the Christmas break. So people would have started going on leave as well. So, and you'll be making your way down, following the team around?
Oh, I'm not too sure with the kids and everything, but I'll definitely try to go to the Eden Park game.
Yep. So, and then sort of following the 3 T20 games against Pakistan, we go to 2 test matches. Oh, sorry, yeah, 2 test matches against Pakistan at Bay Oval and Hagley Oval. Again, it's great that there's sort of like assigning these test matches to cricket grounds, as to purpose-built cricket grounds. Just for test matches in particular, it just adds something to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
After Pakistan, and we then move into, we have a bit of a gap, obviously. So with West Indies and Pakistan, it's sort of pretty much happening pretty quickly. I'm just having a look. West Indies
finish. That's when the Super Smash is most of the games of Super Smash will be played in January.
Yeah,
so they kind of right. Like I think Super Smash finishes in mid-February or something. So I think that's probably to do with it.
And that's great because that means that we've actually got our stars. Like we talked about the World Cup, the T20 World Cup, or ODI World Cup. You want to see the stars coming out. And it's the same for the domestic competition, isn't it? It's great to have your
Big names.
international players
Yeah.
involved to add to the game. Sadly, I mean, like it's almost like, well, should we hand the trophy to Northern now then? They're going to have some
Auckland
pretty.
might surprise you.
Oh, Auckland. I think Auckland's. Well, when you actually look at it, obviously Northern's going to be just full of black caps, but Auckland's still strong. Wellington's going to have a strong side as well. As well, they've picked up a few players as well in the off season, for want of a term. So
Yeah.
there will be a bit of competition from Northern, but it's hard to go past them when you've got a black caps lineup, isn't it? And
Yeah,
power
especially
hitting
with
black caps lineup.
like Tim and Bolt like opening the bowling, so they've got like two new ball bowlers, black caps new ball bowlers, and then I guess like Wellington do have the depth as well. So it would be interesting how it as long as everyone is fit and available, I think Auckland would be a good bet as well.
Okay.
With Guptill playing and then Munro playing, and then got your Chapman, and then bowling wise you got Lockie Ferguson. So I guess like because it's like 120 balls, 20 overs, no one is playing more than 20 overs, right? So it would be this would be a better comp than last year, put it that way, because everyone is available.
Everyone's available. So once the old Super Smash is over, and we'll be heading into 5 internationals with Australia, T20 internationals with Australia. So we're starting off with Hagley Oval. Actually doesn't stay here, but it's a T20, so I'm assuming it'll be under the new lights there. So that'll be exciting to play the game under lights at Hagley Oval. University Oval. Now that definitely doesn't have lights. I'm pretty sure of that. Sky Stadium, Eden Park, and wrapping it up at the Bay Oval. Now, as I alluded to earlier in the show, this is an interesting one because Australia are here for 5 T20s, while Australia are in South Africa for Test matches.
I guess they have. England has done the same, haven't they? Like when
they've done that recently. Yep, just the summer.
Recently. Yeah, so I guess like that's probably the way to move forward,
Well, I mean, like, you're just sort of thinking globally speaking, Australia is probably one of the best positioned teams to do this. And one of the things I read, I don't know if it's true or whether it was just a throwaway line, particularly for coming out of Australia, is that they're basically doing this to help out countries in terms of getting games happening. So that obviously with the COVID environment, to get money rolling in the gate, so to speak, punters rolling in the gate, money happening, broadcast rights, etc. So they're in a position. They've got the player depth to be able to do it. So they're looking to share the love around and spread their team around.
Yeah, I guess at least they've got like 5 or 6 T20 specialists who won't play Test match anyways.
No, that's
so
right.
They're
absolutely.
missing out. They're probably missing out Warner
and Cummins, Stark. But then in saying that, I mean, like their bowling stocks are massive, aren't they?
So I mean, like they won't be as strong. Obviously, full strength would be stronger, but they would still have like their T20 specialists, and they're just missing out like 5 guys who play both formats.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, that's right. So we look forward to Australia coming and seeing those 5 T20s, and then to wrap the season up, we'll get Bangladesh. Because it's not a season, as I keep saying, it's not a season unless Bangladesh comes to New Zealand. And so we'll have Bangladesh playing their 3 one-days, University Oval, Hagley Oval, and Basin Reserve. That's interesting. So there'll be a one-day international at the Basin Reserve, usually just test matches that are played there. Yeah. And then they'll move into T20s, 3 T20s to wrap up the season. McLean Park, Eden Park, and Seddon Park. Interesting one again for me. I would have thought it would have been better to just have those last 2 games around the other way. The finale of the season at Eden Park. I know it's Bangladesh, but maybe do something special so they can sell the ground out, especially with the, we've had a bit of a resurgence in people wanting to go to games with what we've seen with sport. With COVID lockdown, people have been stuck at home, and it's great because, in one sense, because it's seen this resurgence of people wanting to attend games. So off the back of that, it would have been good to just wrap up that season with sort of nearly 40,000 people sitting at Eden Park watching
Yeah,
the
but it's
final
good that
game of the summer.
at least they're at Sidon Park and not somewhere else, because Bangladesh, like Pakistan or Bangladesh or like subcontinents, have a lot of like obviously following in Auckland,
In
right?
Auckland.
But people would still travel to Sidon Park. It's not
Yeah.
too far. But
Yeah.
if it was somewhere else, probably wouldn't have been ideal. So I guess
Yeah.
like my friends like who live in Auckland would go to Hamilton game to
Yep.
watch Pakistan play. So I
Well,
guess like in that way, it's not too bad that they've at least played two of their T20 games close to Auckland.
yep. I mean, if you're doing legit speed limits, it's an hour 20 now down to Hamilton. Who does legit speed limits? Oh, anyway. So that is the season that is coming up for New Zealand for the Black Caps. I can't wait. Looking forward to seeing that happen. And it's a lot of. There's 5 teams coming. Did I get that right? 4 teams coming. West Indies, Pakistan, Australia, Bangladesh. 4 teams.
4 teams coming, yeah.
Yeah, 5 teams playing. I'll save myself. But no, looking forward to that, and I think it's going to be rather exciting. The Black Caps have a great player depth themselves, and I can see a bit of rotation happening to get the players. Actually, I was going to ask you this question: do you think they'll play Wagner for Northern
I doubt they
in the
would.
T20 in the T20s?
I doubt
Yeah.
they would, because in past they haven't. He's played a few games in between,
Yep.
but they've got enough depth in their bowling, anyways.
Yep.
I would be surprised if they do play him. So put it that way.
Right. Yes. Cool. So look, that's sort of gone through most of our team. Then we sort of come to the last part of the show, and as we always do, we've gone over a little bit, but we can't sort of wrap up the show before we talk about the passing of Dean Jones, which was really quite a shock. I mean, he's not old, and quite sad as well, and for me, someone that actually changed the way that one-day cricket was played, especially in terms of batters anyway.
Yeah, I mean, he was like early 90s. He was a big name. I mean, I started watching cricket, and he was a very good fielder as well. Like for one day cricket, like big grounds in Australia, because back then like the ropes were right at the back,
Yep.
Yeah. Grounds, and he was amazing fielder. Good athlete as well. Like running between the wicket was amazing. So he kind of like he changed the game. Like sort of he was the pioneer of, because you've got your Viv Richards who could hit a ball, but like Dane Jones would like take a run like while you're about to throw. So he was like that sort of. So he kind of changed it, and moving on from there, like things have moved on, and now everyone runs faster. Like we've got better fielders, but he was the ultimate one-day cricketer back in the day.
Oh look, I mean, for me, he's the first batsman that run a ball was his norm. That's what he was trying to achieve: is run a ball. And that's it. And you allude to the fielding, one for the arm. you do it club cricket, you go one for the arm. International cricket is just like when you're taking one for the arm, and you got bowlers throwing the ball, and that's and it's the way that he sped up that running between all the stuff that you just said. Basically, it's just phenomenal. And to me, that all goes what we see today with the way that how hard the fielders run at the ball, how quick the players run between the wickets. Now it's like it's an accepted norm for all the batsmen to be targeting run a ball. That's what you should be targeting. But when Dean Jones was playing, it's sort of like a strike rate of 50 was
60, 50,
60, 50.
I think he averaged 44 as well. He averaged quite high for like that era in terms of
Well, here we go. We'll bring up the stats now. So just go here and click that button there, and there we go. And it was sort of look at his record here, and it's just like we look at that. The ODIs a 72 strike rate for and then when we tie that in with his average as well at 44, and he was definitely the pioneer of the high runs and the high strike rate.
Yeah, it was shame I think he was left out in '96 World Cup, and when Australia did come back, he scored 100 against Australia for the rest of the world.
Bitter much?
Yeah. So, but I mean, I was a big fan. My older brother, he was a big fan of him, and he had his posters and everything in the rooms. And coincidentally, unfortunately, Dean Jones died on my brother's birthday, so
Oh,
it was a pretty sad day for him
yeah,
and
pretty
us.
sad day. Yeah, yeah. It's always interesting when one of your heroes passes away. It's just like it's weird. It's someone that you've sort of um, I wouldn't say not necessarily looked up to when you're sort of starting to near your when you're in your 40s. You're not really looking up to them, but you're still one of your boyhood idols, sort of thing, isn't it? And
Yeah,
it's a weird feeling.
especially in Pakistan, he's massive because he was coaching one of the PSL franchises, and he's got good relationship with all the young players. And like I've got a few friends who were playing in PSL and under him, and overall I think his overall persona in Pakistan is huge.
Yeah.
And there's a shockwave in Pakistan, obviously with this news.
I mean, it's like what Aaron's saying. Is it's like for me when it's just like I remember Dean Jones. I hated Dean Jones. Um, I was quite the opposite to your brother. It's just like, oh, he was an annoying Australian, and it just always used to take the games away. The number of times that New Zealand, when obviously this was the eras of the Hadleys and Crows playing as well, and it's like, geez, we were in a good position here, and we've got a couple of early wickets, and then Dean Jones comes in and just actually takes the game away from you, and it's just like, it's just frustrating, and you just grow up sort of, as I say, you hated them the way that they just used to be so good. You hated them because
Yeah.
they were good, not because they were bad. So yeah, and then you find out, oh, these guys are really nice guys actually. But no, we look at his record here. Test matches. Yeah, I mean, you look at that 46.55. That's world class average
And I
by
think like
anybody's record.
he got my brother always says that he got hard done by Cricket Australia because he got dropped I think at 30, 31,
Right.
32 maybe. And the
Yep.
batsmen, like most of the batsmen actually score their sort of better life is between 30 and 35,
Yep.
So he kind
Yep.
of didn't play much international cricket around that time, so which is a shame.
No, that's it. You're right. I mean, I mean, I suppose being someone that's older, you can understand how you sort of get to that 30, over 30, and the 30 to 35. You get a bit of headspace. You're not so
Yes.
rash. You make better decisions.
Yeah, fair call, yeah.
It's just like yeah. So basically, so he had 46.55 test average, nearly the ODI average is nearly as high. I mean, back in the day, a good average for an ODI player was 35.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say so.
and yeah, and it's just like he was 44. So, it's sad. Obviously, his passing. And it's sort of reading some of the stories coming out about him. Rather quite funny. I mean, I went with this morning sports briefing. I had a Shane Warne story that he brought up, and this is like it's Shane Warne's Test debut, and he got his first wicket, and Dean Jones comes into the huddle and gives him a pat on the back. Oh, well done, champ! You got your first wicket. That's awesome, sort of thing. And then, a few matches later, or however long it was, it's like Shane Warne gets a second wicket, and they all come into the huddle and pats on the back. Well done, champ! Now you've got an average of 435 runs per wicket. So he didn't just sledge the opposition; he sledged his own players as well.
Yeah, and Victorian as well. Both are Victorian as well, so I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a Victorian. Well, sad. I think. I mean, it's sad that he's gone, but it's great to sort of talk about the happy memories of such a great player, and I think it's a good place to sort of leave it in terms of the history that Dean Jones has left us and what he has done for our game. So thank you to Dean Jones for what he has done, and thank you to you, Taz, for coming on the show tonight. And appreciate you coming on. And just remember that he's got a sale going on till Sunday. So if you need your cricketing gear, get onto the Taz Cricket website and get your bats and your coloured pads as well. Actually, question: it's pretty much you just got adult gear. You're starting to get some youth gear now. But that's sort of older youth
gear as well.
You do youth gear?
Yeah, we do youth gear and adults. Yeah.
And what age does the youth gear start from, or right down to the little nippers?
So 10-year-olds, 10-year-olds
Yep.
upwards. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So there you go. There you go. If you need some cricket gear, the season is just about to begin. We are going to have a cricket season in New Zealand, so make sure you get onto the website and start buying some of that gear. And thank you guys all for tuning in tonight. Um, really appreciate you guys being on the show and listening to what we have to say. Make sure you go ahead and hit that share button to share it with all your friends on Facebook or on YouTube or wherever you're watching us from or through your podcast thingy. And just remember, every morning, New Zealand Sport Radio brings you the morning sports briefing. That's 7 o'clock every morning, even now, where we have to wake up an hour earlier. And on Monday nights, we've got the Driving Mall show for all your rugby news. Hopefully, we're going to swap with them about with the cricket show, but that just has to be confirmed yet. Tuesday nights, we've got the basketball. So if you're wondering what's happening in the NBA Finals, make sure you tune in there, and Daniel will get on and tell you. We've got Wednesday night, we've got the league. Now, that's coming up to the finals, so make sure you're tuning in to Brad and Sanjay to see what's happening with the finals and the final series with the NRL. Thursday night, the best night of the week, we're going here swinging from the hip at 8 p.m. every Thursday night. And then Friday, the review shows and, preview shows for the rugby coming up on the weekend. Sunday night following that is the preview show. All that happening on New Zealand Sport Radio, the best place to get your sporting news. And this has been Swinging from the Hip for your weekly cricketing fix. And we'll see you next Thursday at 8 p.m. Thank you.